Well, good morning and welcome to Move Early, Move Often. I am Blake Martin. It is Functional Friday, and my co-host, as always, in the heart of the windy city today, Thomas Karakolis. And he's keeping it real. And just wanted to welcome you to Functional Friday. If you did yesterday's throwdown, you may be feeling a little sore. Be sure to do arms opening stretches to kind of get that. And as well, some of the stuff we'll do this morning will actually be beneficial for the squat portion of our program from yesterday. So today we're going to look at a posture that we do when we're children, and they do in most places in the world. And then in North America, we completely give up on it. And that is the deep squat. So the deep squat is just being down on your heels like this. Now, I'm not very good at it. And that's in part because I spent a lot of my day sitting and in chairs. Now, squatting is super useful. It's a very excellent functional posture for a great number of things, not excluding cooking and resting and giving birth and defecating. Right, so those are all useful things. It's a work posture in much of the world, and somehow or other we just lost it largely in North America. And well, not somehow. Things like shoes with heels on them that kind of lift our heels and shorten our the the muscles on the back of our calf here, and things like sitting in chairs and not exploring full range of motion all contribute. So today we're going to look at that. So we're going to start very simply. We're just going to sit with our knees on our mat and our toes pointing backwards. And if this is really hard on your knees, then put some padding or something underneath. All right. And I just want you to rock back a little bit and come forward. And we're just going side to side, just kind of walking your hands past your hips and forward. You don't have to come very far forward. This isn't about deep range of motion. This is just about a little bit of motion. All right. And then we're going to curl your toes under like this. And I don't know if you can see, I've really got my toes are pressing down. And I'm going to get my weight up over my heels, and I'm going to walk my knees backwards. So if you can see this, my knees are forward. And now I'm going to walk my knees backwards so that my heels go behind me. I'm going to get my weight up over top of my hips. I'm going to lean back just a little bit. And you may feel that under your feet, particularly if you're prone to plantar fasciitis. And I'm just going to try and walk my hands back and forth like I did before. And all we're doing is we're just kind of working into this range that we're going to be using a little bit. All right. I'm just going to place my feet down on my mat like this. And I'm going to take my fists and I'm just going to make little massage circles into the bottom of my feet. So I'll turn around so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just twisting my fists into my feet, and I'm rocking from side to side as I do it. The point here is that we're just trying to soften up and move these tissues before we actually go into our squat, because that's part of the problem. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a really wide squat, so my knees are quite far apart, my hands are touching the mat, and I'm just going to rock from side to side. So this is kind of our warm-up, but this is also just kind of preparing us for, this is a squat preparation activity. And you may be asking me, you may be saying to yourself, or me, if you're asking me. But if you're asking yourself, you may be asking yourself, why? Why would I want to squat? And my question to you is, why wouldn't you? Okay, so now we're going to go down further. So I want you to kind of extend your leg out. Your toes are pointing up. And I'm just walking my hands over to the opposite side. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm just going to walk back and forth. And this isn't meant to be some deep, profound stretch. You should only be going to like a level 6 on your stretch scale. Keep it really, really low level. This should just feel nice. Shouldn't be one of those intense, I feel my leg going numb stretches. So just rocking back and forth with your toes coming up and pointing to the ceiling. It's okay if the heel on the squatting leg is lifted. That's fine. Just rocking back and forth. No, the answer to why would you want to squat is because squatting is a very fundamental movement in human postures and activities. And we don't want to lose those activities as we age. If you're like me, you have plans to get older. And as you get older, you want to age gracefully. Now we're going to change it a little bit. I'm just going to keep the blade of my foot down. If you look, and I'm opening the inside of my leg here. So my toes are pointing forward, and I'm moving from side to side. But in all of this, I'm supporting myself. I'm supporting myself really well. All right. So I'm standing up and I'm just gonna shake out my legs. To take a good squat, your feet should be a little wider than shoulder width apart. And if you're new to squatting, there's a few things that you can do to make it simple. One is, if you're afraid that your heels are going to lift off the ground, you can fold up your mat like this. Give a couple of folds to your mat, or a weightlifting plate can do if you've got one of those. So we're going to make some folds to our mat if you need that. And the idea is you would like to have your toes pointing forward for your squat. So a little wider than shoulder width apart, toes pointing forward, and come down into your squat. If that doesn't work, point your toes out slightly and come down. Now, some of you may find that it's really difficult, and what you can do, you can see I've got my bench sticking out a little bit here, is you can hold on to a bench or a door jamb or something like that. Now, for me, because I have this, I'm not very good at squatting, as I said before, this is helpful because it allows me to keep my back straight. As I said, the other thing you can do is just try folding up your mat and put your heels on your mat and come down. So I want you to practice that. I want you to practice just getting into the squat, into the deep squat, and then just practice being there. So just kind of take a few moments and move around, getting into the squat, finding that posture. And with my heels elevated just slightly, I can hold this quite comfortably. Now, part of it, I'll do it sideways so you can see what I'm doing. So just take a second and have a watch. So part of it is finding where should my weight be. Because I kind of feel like I'm pitching backwards. So it's moving forward. And to move forward, it's important for my back to be straight. So I need a little more range and mobility in my ankles, in my dorsiflexion, before I can do this properly. All right, come out of that for a second. And on your mat, just open up into basically a cobra. Just sink down to go in the opposite direction. And let's come back into our squat. We're going to do a couple of very small activities here. So we're in our squat. And what I'd like you to do is place one hand on the floor. You need to move back just a bit so you can see what I'm doing. And reach the other hand to the ceiling. You're trying to keep your hips down. And again, I'm not very good at this, but I'm learning. It's one of these things that I didn't discover until much too late in my life, that I didn't know how to squat. And alternating arms, reaching to the ceiling. All right. And come out of that. And again, for me, I need to just do the opposite motion. So I'm letting my pelvis sink through to the floor. It's kind of a cobra. I'm not being that fussy in terms of my yoga posture, but I am trying to keep my shoulders back and down, and they're moving away from my ears. All right. One more try in your squat. So feet shoulder width apart and coming down. Now, and just move from side to side. Just a slight movement. Now people who are really capable at the squat, we'll just hang out here for a moment, just be in your squat. People who are really capable at the squat, note how energy efficient it is as a seated posture, and that in camping and things like that, it's actually better than the little terrible camp chairs that you bring with you. And it also allows you to work for prolonged periods of time. I can't stay in a squat for more than about 3 minutes. People who are good at it say that they can sustain it forever. They could just stay here. So it's a thing to practice. You can do it with your bench or door jamb and get better back posture. So that's how I would normally be practicing if I were practicing it. You can fold your mat to give your heels a little bit more height. And this is obviously something that you could do in the great out of doors too. You could just take a couple of rocks and pop them under your heels. And you can do half squats so that you've got one leg down, and then you look like one of those cool coaches, in one of those after school movies. So the squat is one of those basic functional postures that we lose over the course of our lives. And you have an opportunity to reclaim it. Practice it a couple of times. See how it goes. You've moved early. I hope you remember to move often, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you back on Momentum Monday.